Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Mild's Culture Plate. It is December 28th, 2022. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you might be out there in the internet, watching this on YouTube, whatever time of day. Hopefully you're catching me live here. I just realized I did not send out any notifications at all on any of the platforms. Let me go ahead and do that to you while I do my introduction to the stream real quick. So how are you folks doing? It has definitely been a very cold week in the United States. And, there's been some problems with some airlines, and that's going to be our first story today, is what the hell is going on with Southwest Airlines. Oh, yeah, Twitter doesn't like me, apparently. For some reason, Twitter does not want to be open in more than one tab on my computer all of a sudden. Let's try that. And let's go to locals and add a link there. So yeah, what the hell is going on with Southwest Airlines? I've in doing my show prep, I tried like 4 mainstream media news sources where the headline was something along the lines of what's been going on with Southwest Airlines. What is the cause of the delays and grounded flights? And a third of those, at least, like several of the mainstream articles, like you get into reading it and they're person pieces. They've interviewed passengers and they're talking to passengers, and they never get into the actual reasons why Southwest Airlines is having so many problems. But I did happen to find ABC News, of all the mainstream sources, did actually present what I actually personally read on Reddit, of all places. Another thing we'll be getting into is earlier today. Was it today? Yeah, earlier today. Oh, okay. Well, wait a minute. What the hell happened here? Okay. Well, weird. Sorry, I was a little distracted there for a moment. Earlier today, Vice aired a previously recorded panel with, I want to say, 8 or 9 women of various political, racial, and I use the term women loosely because there were a few women of recent note, or trans women, as some like to be called. There were a few of those on there, and so there were a couple conservative-ish women. If you're familiar with Sydney Watson, she was on there, and the online personality that goes by Just Pearly Things, she was also on there. And there were some women who seemed to be somewhat in between the right and left, but for the most part, it was pretty dividedly partisan between the far leftist, intersectional feminist doctrine versus the conservative women on the panel. And we'll be getting into a little bit of that. I'll be breaking down just a tiny bit of that, but I don't want to get too hung up. The whole video is 43 minutes. You could go find that on Vice's channel, but we'll just dip into a few things on that. And I've been trying to read up a little bit on Yoel Roth. I can't find that frickin' super thread. If you out there know where to find the super thread, I know I've seen a super thread that talks all kinds of stuff about crazy stuff in the background of Yoel Roth's life. I found bits and pieces pieced together from other websites. We'll be going through some of that. But yeah, if you could find me more on Yoel Roth, if you could find me that super thread, I would really, really like to utilize that. So, for one, let me check and make sure I'm live. Okay, I am. That's the one thing I hadn't done since I started streaming here. Okay, so we're going to jump right into, and by the way, no whiskey again tonight because I'm still trying to knock out this cold. The whiskey would probably actually help knock out the cold, but I'm also so dehydrated that the alcohol would just knock me flat, and I still have things I got to get done. So I've been having to just constantly rehydrate. At my job, I work with a lot of salt, and, my lips are cracking and drying. My whole mouth is dry. My whole body just feels exhausted and drained. So I've been hammering the water. Good old nature's H2O water. I can't ever get enough of it. All right, so from ABC News. Disruption we've never seen. What is causing the Southwest Airlines meltdown? Amid snowstorms, Southwest Airlines delayed far more flights than its rivals. Oh, go away, video. A massive storm has blanketed much of the United States with snow, slowing air travel during a peak season, causing tens of thousands of flight cancellations. The holiday meltdown at Southwest, however, has far eclipsed its competitors. I'm not going to call them Southwest Airlines. Every time they say Southwest Airlines, I'm just going to say Southwest because you're not an airline if you're not in the fucking air. By Wednesday afternoon, the company had canceled more than 2,500 flights planned for that day, which amounted to 62% of the day's total, according to the flight tracking website FlightAware. By contrast, as of Wednesday afternoon, which was today, United Airlines had canceled just 11 flights scheduled for the day, while American Airlines had canceled 23, FlightAware said. Each figure counted for less than 1% of the respective company's total flights. In an interview, so it seems like they finally caught up to things, maybe. In an interview with ABC News' Byron Pitts, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg on Tuesday described good old Pete, good old train station Pete. On Tuesday described the wave of flight cancellations at Southwest as a shocking and unacceptable level of disruption. Meanwhile, Senator Cantwell of Washington, the chair of the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, said the problems at Southwest go beyond weather. While the snowstorm grounded flights in and out of key airports in Southwest's network, the historic scale of cancellations stems from the company's uniquely complex flight coordination model and its antiquated internal scheduling systems, according to flight experts, Southwest officials, and union leaders. This is a level of disruption we've never seen in this country before, Ross Feinstein, industry veteran and former director of operations communications at American Airlines, told ABC News. The numbers are staggering. In a video posted by Southwest on Tuesday, CEO Bob Jordan apologized for the delays. I'm truly sorry, Jordan said. Our network is highly complex, and the operation of the airline counts on all the pieces, especially aircraft and crews remaining in motion where they're planned to go. After days of trying to operate as much of our full schedule across the busy holiday weekend, we reached a decision point to significantly reduce our flying to catch up, he added. Here's what's causing the meltdown at Southwest. A unique flight scheduling model. A snowstorm battered much of the U.S. in recent days, leaving 34 dead in western New York and forcing many indoors nationwide. The storm also curtailed air travel, including at Southwest Airlines, which saw major airports in Denver and Chicago hammered by harsh conditions. But the particularly severe disruption at Southwest is due in large part to the company's approach to flight scheduling, which departs from the typical hub and spoke model that most airlines rely on. Henry Hartevelt, a travel industry analyst at Atmosphere Research Group, told ABC News via email. At an airline like American or United, for example, a plane may operate on a fairly narrow track traveling from its base hub to a variety of cities. This helps the airline compartmentalize its operation when bad weather hits. Southwest instead uses a point-to-point model, which aircraft may make multiple stops along a route as they ply their way across the country. So when an extensive bad weather system hits, Southwest is affected in ways that other airlines are not. Jordan, the CEO of Southwest, acknowledged the company's atypical scheduling strategy in a statement on Tuesday. Southwest is the largest carrier in the country, not only because of our value and our values, but because we build our flight schedule around communities, not hubs. In order to return to normal operations, the company said it would operate roughly one-third of its schedule over the next 2 days as it resets its complex model of scheduling and coordinating trips. As of Wednesday, Southwest Airlines had canceled 58% of its flights scheduled for Tuesday, FlightAware data showed. And, by the way, ABC News, I hate ABC, I hate all mainstream media, but kudos for, you see this link here that I'm highlighting? Lawmakers bash Southwest over flight cancellations. So they have links to these other articles where they talk about lawmakers talking about it, where they talk about passengers talking about it. Instead of cramming it into this article, they're putting links to the other articles. Like 4 or 5 of these other mainstream media news outlets, that was the majority of the article, and they never got into any of this actual data. An overwhelmed internal management system. In addition to its complicated model for assigning flights, Southwest also suffers from an antiquated internal system used for managing and staffing those trips, company officials, union leaders, and experts said. They've had IT-related issues in terms of tracking their crews and scheduling, said Feinstein, formerly of American, issues with what they use to monitor aircraft locations, crew, flight attendants, and all of the above. Casey Murray, president of the Southwest Pilots Association, said in a statement on Tuesday that technology used internally to oversee staffing and scheduling has faced difficulties stretching back at least a decade. We know that the company has had its head buried in the sand when it comes to its operational processes and IT, Murray said. We aren't undermanned, we're undermanaged. Southwest CEO Bob Jordan affirmed such concerns in a message to employees, according to a memo obtained by CNN. Part of what we're suffering is a lack of tools, Jordan said. We've talked an awful lot about modernizing the operation and the need to do that. The mismanagement has forced ground workers to complete 16 or 18-hour workdays over this holiday season, exposing them to bitter cold, sickness, and even frostbite. Randy Barnes, president of TWU Local 555, which represents ground workers at Southwest, said in a statement, "When you're dealing with sub-zero temperatures, driving winds, and ice storms, you can't expect to schedule planes as if every day is a sunny day with moderate temperatures and a gentle breeze. The airline needs to do more to protect its ground crews. The lack of adequate staffing has extended to companies' call centers, where customers face long wait times as they seek an alternative flight or a reimbursement." In an interview with ABC News, Buttigieg lamented the persistence of such challenges at Southwest, including passengers unable to get anybody on the phone to help them and the company's inability to fully keep track where their own flight crews are. What to expect looking ahead? Well, if they're already getting back on track to the 1%, Tuesday, Buttigieg vowed that the Department of Transportation would investigate. With chaos still ongoing, Southwest has already reached an unprecedented level of disruption. Experts say, okay, so I'm about done with this article. I am done with this article. But so here's my take. And from what I understand, based on some things I've read on Reddit and some other people I've personally talked to that are in the airline field, it's interesting that this article, the only quote from really Southwest are the brushed under the rug takes from their CEO. What you're hearing from is the union leader who's pissed off at them, some sort of airline expert who basically worked at two other airlines, not Southwest, who's now talking shit about them, and Pete Buttigieg, who, let's face it, nobody gives two rotten shits about. So, a non-biased look at what's going on is they have this scheduling system that's obviously outdated. I believe what was in the article about that. This blaming it on this hub system. So if you're not familiar with Southwest, what Southwest tends to do is they take one plane, they fly it from the East Coast, and will bump across the country from city to city to city. So, for example, if you wanted to fly from St. Louis to Las Vegas, there's a plane that started somewhere, probably Boston, and then hit somewhere in Ohio, then came to St. Louis, then it's going to go to Las Vegas, and then it's going to probably end up in California. And that one plane goes bump. So what they're saying is, well, if they can't take off from St. Louis because there's a snowstorm, well, now you not only had to cancel the St. Louis flight, but you've also had to cancel the St. Louis to Vegas, and then Vegas to California. So there's, probably 3 flights right there that had to be grounded when really only one city was affected by the weather. I don't think that's entirely true. I think what happened is, because, let's face it, a company like Southwest, they have enough planes where, for example, if you can't get a plane to go from St. Louis to Las Vegas, or St. Louis to, if you can't get, you could pull one out of Kansas City, you could pull one out of Dallas, fly it over to, or anywhere near Vegas, Utah, Salt Lake, you could send it down to pick up passengers. They have enough planes. The problem isn't with their city-to-city connected strategy. The problem is with their scheduling. So when you've built your entire model on this city-to-city strategy, your scheduling assumes that that staff that's flying all the way from Boston to San Francisco and going bop, 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 bop across the country are going to be able to get the connecting flights back and are going to be able to connect from city to city to make that round trip and to do what they're going to do. But here's the problem. A, you had the storm, which was canceling flights. And B, you had the holidays, which was making every other airline packed with people. So even if Southwest, for example, couldn't get its staff out of St. Louis, like you could have moved people via other airlines, but the other airlines were packed too. So because that staff isn't there to fly and staff that plane at the other end of the line at San Francisco to fly back to Vegas, Kansas City, St. Louis, Ohio, Boston, right? Because that staff didn't make the complete trip west. Well, now they can't make the trip east either. Because they don't have the staff, and they couldn't fly the staff out via another airline because the other airlines were packed due to the holidays. So now, it's a snowball effect. Once you've canceled one flight, you literally have to start over at the very beginning of the chain the next day. And even then, they still had staff stuck in places like Buffalo where the snow was burying their planes. So this idea that they were overworking their staff, look, I work in the weather. I'm now sick from working in the weather. And even myself didn't want to go out. Like I had to limit the amount of time I was in the direct wind when we had wind chills far below zero here. So I'm not saying those workers needed to just tough it out. I'm not saying that. But that, these things that they say contributed to cancellations of flights, I'm going to have to call bullshit on some of that. It was more the scheduling and the not being able to move around staff. And yes, that's somewhat a problem with the city-to-city model they have. But under normal circumstances, they could just move people from another city. But because the volume of the holidays and the fact that that snowstorm had literally hit everywhere in the central and northern United States, all the way to the East Coast, meant you had an unprecedented situation. So, there are people that are calling for Southwest Airlines to issue cash refunds and put people up in hotels and give them vouchers for future flights and this and that. And yes, they should. They definitely should. This was Southwest dropping the ball. And even though Southwest Airlines is one of the cheaper airlines, and you wouldn't expect McDonald's to buy you a steak dinner because they got your order wrong. This is a bit more important. This is people getting back to their families. This is people getting back to their jobs. This is people losing their livelihoods. And even if Southwest has to go out of business to satisfy their customer service duties to these people, that might be what they'll have to do. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the airline industry moving forward. Okay, so gonna real quick hit Yoel Roth here. Let's see. This is from heavy.com. And I'm going to skip much of this. Yoel Roth, 5 facts you need to know. Updated December 11th, 2022 by Jessica McBride. Does this have a Milwaukee Police Beat Government Breaking News reporter for Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel? Okay, so Jessica McBride at heavy.com. 5 facts you need to know. Yoel Roth is the former head of trust and safety, featured prominently in the Twitter files released by Elon Musk. I'm going to skip some of this. He criticized Musk's writing. Since the deal closed on October 27th, many of the changes made by Mr. Musk and his team have been sudden and alarming for employees and users alike, including rapid-fire layoffs and an ill-fated foray into reinventing Twitter's verification system. Yoel Roth worked at Twitter in a variety of capacities for 7 years. He recently tweeted that people can armchair quarterback specific choices and mistakes all day. Yoel Roth last tweeted himself on December 1st, 2022, when he wrote, "If there's one takeaway, it's this. What matters most in platform governance is how decisions get made. You can armchair quarterback specific choices and mistakes all day, but the real work is figuring out how to make principled decisions when all you have are bad options." It's really fucking not, though. I mean, it's really fucking not. I mean, do you want to be a tyrant or do you fucking not? Like, that's the bad decision versus bad decision. He lives in the California area. Conversations about ops. Okay, so here we go. Yoel Roth featured heavily in the Twitter files, is under scrutiny for his meetings with the FBI. And now we're going to see a bunch of screenshots from the Twitter files. Did I miss something? Now they're talking about his dog. That had nothing to do with the Twitter files. Okay, Roth, who is married, has tweeted about his marriage to his husband, Yellowstone, going to brunch, and baking. Excuse me. Some of Roth's tweets are now causing controversy on Twitter itself. I'm getting a sense that Yoel Roth, okay, so this is from Bricksuit, getting a sense that Yoel Roth doesn't like children, kind of an odd sentiment for someone who headed up trust and safety at Twitter. And let's look at these tweets real quick. Persistently freaked out by the youth-centric direction in my research interests are headed in, given I, hate children. Surrounded by noisy, smelly children, all whom have food and seem to exist solely to kick the back of my seat, I hate air travel. To the group of 20-plus children tonelessly singing Justin Bieber, I'd like to congratulate you on cementing my choice never to procreate. And men are turning to a life of carefree homosexuality to avoid the expenses of wives and children, it has emerged. So, obviously, not for the children. Yeah, and again, this is more of the Twitter files. He's talking about hateful content. And then Liz Wheeler here points out that he's calling Trump a Nazi. Okay, so here we go. 4. Roth worked on a dangerous speech project and researched the self-expression choices of gay men in college, Musk tweeted out part of his doctoral dissertation. Looks like Yoel is arguing in favor of children being able to access adult internet services in his PhD thesis. It's worth considering how, if at all, the current generation of popular sites of gay networked sociability might fit into an overall queer social landscape that increasingly includes individuals under the age of 18. Even with the service's extensive content management, Grindr may well be too lewd or hookup oriented to be a safe and age appropriate resource for teenagers. But the fact that people under 18 are on these services already indicates that we can't readily dismiss these platforms out of hand as low-key for queer youth culture, rather than merely trying to absolve themselves of legal responsibility or worse, trying to drive out teenagers entirely. Service providers should instead focus on crafting safety strategies that can accommodate a wide variety of use cases for platforms like Grindr for their role of safely connecting queer young adults. Okay. What is this? Developed and implemented protocols, wrote on LinkedIn. Yeah, like I said, we're going to skip a huge chunk of this. Oh, here's Patty White of the Department of Film and Media Studies of Swarthmore talking about his transcript. Yoel went to Annenberg School, as I said. His dissertation was called Gay Data, and it focused on the privacy and self-expression choices of gay men using geo-social networking services. He's published several articles from that research. 0 Feet Away, The Digital Geography of Gay Social Media, No Overly Suggestive Photos of Any Kind, Content Management Policies and the Policing of Self in Gay Digital Communities, and forthcoming work that my students have a sneak preview of, and we'll talk about it tomorrow with Yoel in class. No Fats, No Fems, No Privacy, forthcoming in Digital Media 2, Transformations in Human Communication. Yoel's also worked with research at Harvard University Berkman Center for Internet and Society to develop protocols for studying dangerous speech and counter speech online. Wow. And of course, Roth holds a doctorate in communication, tweeting about hummingbirds, and yeah, nobody really gives a shit. So, you know, some disturbing stuff. Let's see, these clips. Okay, so there's a few short clip videos here where he's giving an interview. And yeah, let me do that. Okay. Nope. It didn't work. Hang on. All right. Now these were tweeted out in the full video is online from this kf.org. But it's part of a huge, long, but these are smaller clips, but these were tweeted out by Michael Tracy. And so let's hear a little bit about what he was saying.
Donald Trump.
About Trump.
That one I don't think was a mistake.
January 6th.
So it starts on the 6th, but it also starts prior to that.
That's correct.
In the weeks leading up, in the weeks between Election Day and January 6th, Twitter moderated hundreds. I think the final number ended up as like 140 separate tweets from just at Real Donald Trump that violated various policies.
Yes, he was good at that.
Integrity policy.
Yeah.
Every morning it was a new tweet. Much of it was recirculating some of the same narratives, and all of it was focused on the ultimately false claim that the 2020 election had been stolen. And so we're going into the events of the 6th.
Okay, so look, I've stated before on this channel that I don't care what your policies are. The sitting president of the United States should have access to media. Like, if you want to channel some of that into an area of the internet where it could be debated and disproven, do that. but to silence and to coordinate silencing the leader of the free world amongst all media and social media to where he can't speak to his constituents at all. Pretty crazy shit. So I don't care what policies he was violating. If it's not child porn, if it's not active calls to murder people, which what he was tweeting was not that, then you gotta just lead people to dissenting information if you have to. But even that's fucking crooked.
And there's that context. There's the centrality of his account in
So you let him get away with it for a long time, in other words.
Well, we'd been enforcing on it, right? So we restricted the tweets. We put warnings on them. You couldn't like them. You couldn't retweet them. But we didn't ban him because it was a relevant part of a moment in American politics.
Right.
The events of the 6th happen. And if you talk to content moderators who worked on January 6th, myself included, the word that nearly everybody uses is trauma. We experienced those events, not some of us as Americans, but not just as Americans or as citizens. But
why? I have to ask, why are you fucking Yoel Roth, what is it, sitting in Silicon Valley? What the fuck are you traumatized by with people in the Capitol on the other fucking coast of the country? Clear at the opposite end of the country from where you are sitting. Even if it had been a violent protest, like we had seen the entire summer leading up to the election, what does it have to do with you sitting in Silicon Valley? Why are you traumatized? Why are you personally involved in what's going on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol? Why do you feel a need to put your hands in that dirty pot?
As people working on sort of how to prevent harm on the internet, we saw the clearest possible example of what it looked like for things to move from online to off. We saw we saw the way that rhetoric about a stolen election was being mobilized on sites like the Donald.win. We saw the trafficking of this content in the fringe part.
Okay, so you're admitting it wasn't Twitter. It wasn't his words on Twitter. It was everyone. And look, I think three different things happened on January 6th. I think you had a huge rally with tons of fucking people that were just there to peacefully support the President of the United States. I think there were a small group, maybe 100 at most, of people who were really fucking pissed off and ready to perhaps commit an insurrection. Some of them may have been coordinated. And I think within that maybe 100 are probably about 15 to 20 glowies. Now again, this is just my estimates here. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. Ray Epps. But seriously, why does this guy feel that something on Twitter expanded to offline when he himself said that this was rhetoric formed on Donald.win? Pretty fucking sus, if you ask me.
Parts of the internet, and we saw people dead in the Capitol as a consequence of it.
Let me.
People dead in the Capitol. Yeah, a Trump supporter. Okay, this continues.
But what are you worried about these Twitter files coming out? And what was that experience like having Kellyanne, who's always in control of herself, sicking this MAGA trolls on you?
It's terrifying.
Sicking the MAGA trolls. As if banning thousands of conservatives from the biggest platform on the internet doesn't already make you a fucking target.
I thought I was going to be a college professor for a living. I got a PhD and was doing research that nobody cared about, and then I was like, oh, this platform thing is cool. Like, I can go and do research there, and then one thing led to another, and all of a sudden we apply a misinformation label to Donald Trump's account, and I'm on the cover of the New York Post, and that is a deeply terrifying experience. And I say,
oh my God! Oh my God! So terrifying to be in the news when I'm the one who gets to control everyone else's fucking speech and whether or not they get talked about on the internet. Come on. Come on. Grow a fucking spine, you fucking snake.
I say this from a position of unquestioned privilege as a cis white male. Like, the internet is much scarier and much worse for lots of other people who aren't me, but it was pretty fucking scary for a long time.
What was the
as a result
part?
of that? When you get targeted in some of these.
And you know what? If you're scared of the fucking New York Post, then maybe you don't take their biggest fucking scoop in a decade and yeet it off the fucking internet. And don't give me that, oh, I'm a privileged cis male, but even I was terrified. Yeah, duh. That's the fucking point. These people have no fucking self-awareness, and fucking spineless snakes like this are the entire reason our country is fucking doomed.
These ways, it's hard to differentiate between what is somebody just online trying to rattle you and what's a real threat. You see in things like Pizzagate that online conspiracies can mobilize very real and very direct offline violence.
So here we go. I'm surprised he didn't go for fucking Gamergate, but he went Pizzagate. It's a coin flip, man. It's Pizzagate or Gamergate. Look, I don't know if anyone that watches my show has looked under the fucking surface of either Pizzagate or fucking Gamergate, but they were blown up as these huge things where online communities got together and talked about how evil people were, and that mobilized people to attack. Look, Pizzagate was simply a conversation, right, about Epstein's friends, right? The pedos in government and Hollywood. That's how it started. Somewhere along the conversation, someone attached some crazy theories anonymously on like 8chan, places like that. Anonymously. Some shit about a fucking pizza parlor in Washington, D.C., and Podesta and Clinton and all these people having parties in the basement, and allegedly the place don't even have a basement. Who knows? I don't care. That's not the fucking point. The point is there are powerful people. President Clinton on Epstein's plane logs several fucking times who are in bed with pedophiles. Politically speaking. But now Pizzagate gets turned into this thing because some guy fucking ran into the pizza place and tried to shoot the place up. And let me make this fucking clear. I'm going to give the same disclaimer I give a lot, and that is this channel has nothing to do with violence. I discourage you from doing anything violent to anybody for this fucking reason. Because as soon as a single violent incident breaks out any fucking where, it paints any legitimate, like they will fucking take their entire mainstream media and paint any legitimate concern anyone has about any issue that has to do with freedom, that has to do with the Constitution, that has to do with your rights, that has to do with lives, and discredit it as a violent hate movement that's out to murder people. So no fucking violence, no fucking death threats. Just call them fucking scumbags and pedophiles. Call them what they are, but don't threaten them. Don't get violent with them until they come for your kids. Then all bets are off. But you better make sure, like, they're in there with your fucking kids. Like, I fully support self-defense and defense of the family. Moving on.
And I worry about that. I had been doxxed years before by teenagers, actually. They're always behind it. But, you know, I saw those harms, I experienced those harms, and now it was those harms through a mainstream news outlet being held up in the Oval Office by the former president of the United States, and that is deeply terrifying.
Yet, we just saw in that news article that I just went through, he's posting about living in Yellowstone. So he's worried about the ramifications of being doxxed, yet he's fucking constantly doxing the region he lives in, at least.
Okay, Babylon Bee, which is what got him to buy the thing, I think.
That's the
one which was not particularly funny. The Babylon Bee's Man of the Year is
not particularly funny. Not particularly funny. Says, I mean, come on. Come on. Bro.
Rachel Levine. Not funny.
Yeah. And you can ask...
I didn't agree they should have taken that down, but go ahead.
You know, look. John Mellencamp look alike. What you find funny doesn't fucking matter. It was so funny, they literally had to take it down. I mean, if it's not funny, then no one's gonna share it. If no one shares it, why do you need to fucking censor it? Let's be a little fucking honest here. God, I don't know if we're gonna get to the feminist video. I'll try to do some quick clips.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting to think about what the competing tensions around that are. And I want to start by acknowledging that the targeting and the victimization of the trans community on Twitter is very real, very life-threatening, and extraordinarily serious.
Yet, you can have a certain community target people like Nick Rekieta, target people like Libs of TikTok, target people like the Babylon Bee, target people like Matt Walsh, and form harassment campaigns against them. But I don't hear Yoel Roth calling them dangerous. You know, it's not dangerous when they go after J.K. Rowling. It's not dangerous when they tweet things like the ends justify the means. Or like we saw a couple weeks back, that Supreme Court justices should be accosted wherever they go. No, it's hate against those communities we have to worry about, not the hate coming from those communities.
We have seen from a number of Twitter accounts, including Libs of TikTok notably, that there are orchestrated campaigns that particularly are singling out a group that is already particularly vulnerable within society. And so, yeah, not only is it not funny, but it is dangerous, and it does contribute to an environment that makes people unsafe in the world. So let's start from a premise that it's fucked up. But then
Well, why don't we start with the premise that it's fucked up to encourage doing these things to children? Like they wouldn't be such a conversation if there wasn't such a conversation about, I don't know, putting all kids on puberty blockers, indoctrinating them when they're 5, 6, 7.
again, let's look at what Twitter's written policies are. Twitter's written policies prohibit misgendering, full stop. And the Babylon Bee.
Why? 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 You could say what you want about Christians all day long. You can use hate speech and slurs against religions. You can use hate speech and slurs against so many groups and classes on Twitter. Even before the Musk takeover. Why is why specifically create a policy, a blanket policy? Now, it'd be one thing if you say misgendering for the purpose of harassment. But no, that's not what he said. He said misgendering is against the terms of service, period. If you put misgendering for the purpose of harassment, that'd be one thing. I don't believe in that, but I could almost kind of get there with what Twitter's vision for what it wanted speech to be. I could almost get there. But when you just say no exceptions, it's blanket, we're just going to blah. You know, when all this stuff went down, I put some funky pronoun weird stuff in my bio, and you know, I told myself that if somebody didn't use my fake bunk ass pronouns, I was going to get them banned. But I never did that because I'm not an asshole. I'm not like this douchebag.
In the name of satire, misgendered Admiral Rachel Levine.
In the name of satire. That's fucking key. In the name of satire.
Twitter
Satire.
Nominally, but it's still misgendering.
Okay.
And you know, there can be a very long and academic discussion of satire and sort of the lines there. Interestingly, Apple tried to tease out this question of satire and political commentary in their own guidelines, which I think are also fraught. But you know, we landed on the side of enforcing our rules as written.
And that's how it got bought by Elon Musk, just in case you're interested. He was mad about that. I remember that.
Rightly fucking so. Anyway, that's a little bit about Mr. Yoel Roth. Miss Yoel Roth. So now let's go over to an equally disgusting organization in Vice and try to get a little bit of this debate on feminism. Come on, resize. See, I got to resize every time I go full screen on a video here. Oh, okay, it automatically went in. All right. So I think this is a part.
And that, and also like upper middle class white women has predominantly been the face of what we quote unquote consider feminism.
I think feminism is attempting to say, okay, the first thing we agree on is that there are barriers and friction to what I need and what I want based on the fact that I'm a woman. What it ignores is that, and what privilege is that you may not have to think that being a woman and being a black woman and being a black woman who has a disability, for example, impacts you further.
So in case you haven't noticed yet, this woman is disabled. So that's one big reason she brings up with disability. That's going to become important later.
you have more barriers, you have more friction, you are less able to get what you want, you're undervalued in a way that's like,
Less friction.
okay, well, you know, that's life. That's what I mean by equity, and that we're able to, without friction, all get the same needs met.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, see, I disagree with that. I think life is easier if you're a girl. Actually,
you
I
can use
think
it as
there's a
an
lot of
advantage.
benefits that men don't have. I'm not going to speak anything to race. I'm just talking about gender specifically. It's usually like an excuse. Like, honestly, I think as a girl, you have equal opportunity in the world. I think there's benefits. Like, for example, we have quotas for women in specific jobs that are given to us that aren't given to men. So yeah, I would say it's easier.
So, just Pearly things. Fucking right on fucking point, but listen to this.
Being a girl.
Just from a viewpoint over here, though, it seems there's a lot of pretty privilege in what you're saying, and that you're white and you present.
Do you think I'm pretty? Thank you.
I think that you present in a way that beauty standards have accepted. And so
They call me ugly on the internet all the time. They be roasting.
Okay, so I want to point something out here with this, because they address this later too. They basically accuse her of having pretty, and they talk about skin color being part of pretty privilege. But I want to point out, nothing against Pearl here, Pearly things, just Pearly things. But the lady right in front of her, over here in the, what is it, like beige dress and beige sport coat and purplish brown dress here, with her knees crossed in the brown boots. I would like my audience's opinion. Who's hotter? Just on this panel, in this moment, who's hotter? Pearly things, or the brown girl in the front there, in the tight dress, with the lower cut? Just saying. Yet, you know, she's pretty privileged. You know, this is the fucked up thing about a debate about feminism, is they get to these little catty things. Oh, well, you're just pretty. And she's using it as a fucking insult.
To me daily, I swear to God.
I don't mean to say I think you're gorge. I just mean that there are a certain value.
I don't mean I think you're gorgeous.
I mean, let's also dig into why these quotas exist and why these, what you're calling
because we
privileges
want special
exist.
treatment.
And this, by the way, that person that just spoke was, you know, a trans activist who's targeted children with, yeah.
No, it's because there have historically and presently in most jobs been fewer women, and because of sexism.
How is it sexism when we have no barriers today? So we can
Who
pick
has
what
no
we want to
barriers?
pick.
Doesn't have barriers.
Women don't have barriers?
Women, yeah. What's
We have
stopping
no
you? You can do whatever you want.
I
stopping
can
you?
or you can?
What's stopping you? As a woman.
As a woman. See, that ignores a lot that I'm a woman with a disability. So there's a lot stopping me that you.
Okay, so here we go. So this whole time, all they've been talking about is what feminism's job is. To create this equity. And so this person here, again, keeps talking about her disability. Now, here's the one fucking thing I wish anybody on this panel would have spoke up and said in this moment, and none of them did. You need wheelchair ramps. A black disabled man would also need a wheelchair ramp. But does his need for a wheelchair ramp inherently come with a discussion on how he has some kind of power over a woman, like he's a physical abuser, like what's in the Duluth Power and Control model, that somehow he has control over women? Does his need for a wheelchair ramp automatically need to come with a discussion on how he's an abuser? Is that feminism's goal?
You don't have to think about.
Well, as I
you don't
said
have to
before, I'm
think about.
speaking about women. I'm not.
You're
I'm
speaking
not,
you're speaking for yourself.
You're speaking as
an able-bodied white woman.
I
That is
understand.
white.
Represents white.
Of course, there's going to be other barriers if you're disabled. I'm sure. Like I'm talking about as a woman.
So you're
I
just
would
going to
agree.
ignore
White
the
women
pay
have it
gap.
easier. Yes, I would agree.
What?
You're just going to ignore the pay gap, regulation over bodies.
pay gap has been
Well,
proven
the
and
pay gap
debunked
doesn't
endlessly,
exist.
my friend.
It doesn't.
that's so
It's
funny.
the industries that women pick.
Let's talk about it.
There's a pay gap, but it's because women don't want to do the hardest industries.
I don't think it's that simple. I think that's an oversimplification. I think the fact of the matter is that women structure their lives differently to men. Men don't give birth. Men don't have.
Sydney, you're cool, but she was actually right. It's more the industries they pick. Anyway, they get into a heated debate about abortion.
We shouldn't be desensitized to taking someone's life. That should never be an empowering factor for a woman.
I definitely agree in that. Like,
So yeah, that woman there, she's been on both sides of the debate now. She's been with the radical feminists when it came to the what do you call it? Transactional feminism. It's not transact. What the hell is it? I'm having a brain fart. Anyway, the fact that being a black woman and having challenges as a black woman is more important than just regular feminism. She was on board with them with those messages, but now that it's on abortion, she seems to be a little more conservative on her position on abortion, and I respect that. Nobody's a monolith.
there should be no absolute thing any woman should do. There should not be an absolute response to incest or rape or any of these things. Every woman should have the choice of if they want to or not want to carry that child, whether it is having fun, getting raped, incest, whatever it is.
It is.
I don't glorify and glamorize abortion. I think it's a very traumatic thing. I doubt that if somebody has to do, if they have to do it, they'll do it. I don't think that people are doing have 6, get the 7th free and having fun with it.
See, that's where you're wrong. There are people that are doing that. They had the tweet out your abortion hashtag. They had journalists who were taking their literally reporting on their own abortion and celebrating it. So they keep saying, no, we're just celebrating the access. We're not celebrating the actual act. No. There are sickos out there who are celebrating the act, who will talk about dead babies like it's not a problem. Anyway, let's skip forward.
Included in feminist conversations. How about in women's spaces?
Yes, they're women. What's the question?
Transgenders.
Pearl,
Trans women are women.
So I want to come at this from the position of an athlete.
Oh, Jesus.
So I play semi-pro basketball, semi-pro volleyball.
Oh, Jesus.
So
See,
when
you
it comes
couldn't
to
even-
athletic spaces,
You couldn't even hold your fucking tongue to let her fucking say a single sentence. You already knew it was coming and felt the need to, oh, Jesus. Like you even believe in Jesus, you fucking sicko.
I don't think that trans women should be allowed into athletic spaces because I don't think it's a fair. I think as female athletes, we work so incredibly hard for the little opportunity there is in women's sports.
Would this be a barrier for you?
There's no barrier. There's less opportunity in
Would this be a barrier?
some industries.
That's
one
what a
of them.
barrier is.
There's less. It's not. No. It's
That's
based
what
on the
friction
market.
means.
Okay.
Hold
it's
on.
based
See? And this is the problem. It's straw manning a selective argument. This is why you can't debate the left. Because they will always straw man. What's a barrier to one person is a challenge to another. And it all depends on your outlook on life. It's an individual challenge. And it's sick that you have to explain this to someone who seems to be living a semi-happy life with a huge disability. Because they should be the first to understand the difference between a challenge in life and a barrier. They should also understand the difference between an attainable goal in life versus an obstacle that has been injected into your life unfairly. So let's move on.
Guys, okay, so again, we work very hard for the little opportunity there is in the space because we're not as entertaining as the men. Sorry, we're just not. And so it's like you're gonna take the little opportunity that we're given. And the problem is, like, we can't compete. We can't. Like, I'm 6 foot. If I go up against a 6 foot guy and I play basketball with him, he's gonna body me.
And what happens if I go up against you?
Even if I have years more of training. And so it's like
so then they get into body standards and beauty standards and some other shit. And let me kind of fast forward because I'm really focused on this person in a wheelchair because, to be honest, I'm fascinated by how well put together she seems, but how horribly put together her arguments are.
Got brought up at the beginning. How does that tie into femininity?
Sorry, I'm very into this idea because I do think it is one of the larger intersections that just doesn't get very
Intersectional
discussed,
feminism.
Which is, like I was talking about before, barriers and friction are placed up around bodies. And the
friction. Like, she's now used that term several times in this debate. Sorry, I wish I had more clips of Sydney, but we're not going to deal with that tonight. Anyway.
Fatter I get, the older I get, the less people will listen to me, the less value I will have for society. So, I'm already starting out as a woman with no legs. If I had something on my face, I have my beauty. That's one of my privileges. I have my whiteness. That's one of my privileges. I used to have thinness, and now I'm getting fatter. Things are changing, and
Okay, so now we go to, according to OkCupid and other dating websites, the top 80% of women date the top 20% of men. And that's going off of visual looks. So that beauty privilege she thinks she has when she puts on makeup, only 20% of men have even close to access to that particular privilege. But because 80% of women have that capability, have the capability to at least pretty themselves up enough to where some guy wants to nut on their face, so therefore he'll listen to what she has to say. She thinks this is somehow a disadvantage. That somehow this means something about her body's worth, or something about her mind, or the lack of value in other areas. Yeah, it's called character. Most human beings have to build character. And in fact, any man worth his weight in anything has to build character in order to feel valued. Welcome to the fucking real world. Welcome to the wall, because that's the lesson you're learning now that you're hitting the wall, is that your value, your actual character, being valuable as a human is more than just skin fucking deep.
I think every single time that we talk about feminism, pretty privilege should be discussed because we have these ideas. If your skin tone is this, if your hair is this, if your body looks like that, it's about whether or not you are given an equal opportunity based on what you look like.
I saw it.
I think a lot of times the women that complain about beauty standards don't complain about them when they got privilege, when they were young and attractive and thin. So it's like, yeah, you're complaining when the privilege is gone, but privilege is invisible to those who have it. And women, it's a privilege. And men.
Look at that fucking look. She thinks she just had a gotcha. But I don't think she realizes that I don't think Pearly here, and remember, I pointed out the girl in front of her.
And don't turn 18.
having somewhat a more beauty, she, like, I think she's more attracted to Pearly than Pearly thinks she's attractive, like, I don't think she realizes, like,
And get looks that we get.
As a Black woman, one of the most
this
integral
woman
parts
in
of
front,
the beauty conversation has been colorism.
yeah,
I'm a
and
dark-skinned Black
colorism.
woman.
So yeah, here they go. So this woman in front has somewhat a different beauty standard than Pearly back there. That doesn't mean they're less of a people, or that they can't find a mate, or they can't be taken seriously. That's your fucking problem. And this woman in the back left here in this screen right now, she goes on and on and on about the same thing. We're just going to kind of skip over that. I think there was one other thing toward the end I wanted to cover.
Or to something because it didn't conform to that body type. When that same body type became popular with Kim Kardashian and the Kardashians.
Oh, yeah.
Who are
she's talking about how, okay, so now she's talking about how when she was growing up and she had a big butt, well, that's just being black. Like, nobody cared. But then when Kim Kardashian came out with a giant ass, now all of a sudden everybody likes giant asses. I think you're reading too much into it, lady. Because quite frankly, most straight dudes, like, Kim Kardashian was just the chick in that porn video. Beyond that, none of us really give a fuck about her ass.
Are different, right, than me. Let's just say are different skin color, right? And
I'm an ass guy. Like, let me be clear about that. I'm an ass guy, and no, Kim Kardashian, that she's not it.
a lot of animosity. And a lot of Black communities of the fact that when it was on Black skin, it was an issue, but when it was on Kim Kardashian and the Kardashians, it was $1 billion business.
Yep. Our time together has almost come to an end. We sort of started talking about feminism, big picture. We're gonna try again. Is feminism dead?
I think feminism is alive, and I'm thankful to be a participant and believer of it.
So that lady, not Sydney here, but that lady that was just on there, like, I skipped through everything she said because literally it's from the fucking Communist Democrat Party handbook. Like, literally everything she said was a fucking soundbite from the far left. She said a little snippet about her home country and her culture, and then just vomited some more feminism.
I would say, as far as the West goes, I think that feminism has been cannibalized by other movements like leftism, like transgenderism.
So I think feminism is very much alive and well. I think it takes different forms depending on who you're talking to, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And as I've defined in the beginning, for me, I use it as a lens. So I don't think I'll ever stop having it in my arsenal, if you will. It makes for a good vice panel.
Okay, we're done. I appreciate everybody taking the time. I know.
So anyway, that's that, folks. I've got to go. I am late for dinner, and the feminist in my life does not like me being late for dinner. So I'm going to have to call this one a good evening. Thank you for stopping by. If you have a second, click all those buttons down there, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, share this to other platforms. If you're on Rumble, hit that plussy, pound that plussy. Let's see, share it on other platforms. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think about Southwest being grounded, or what you think their customer service should do for these people. Let me know what you think of Yoel Roth. Let me know if you can find that Yoel Roth super thread that I cannot seem to find anymore. And let me know what you think about this feminist debate. Feel free to go check it out on Vice, or go stalk Sydney Powell's Twitter, and there's clips there. You can if you don't want to give Vice the click view, I wish I hadn't, but hey, it's content. It's something for us to talk about, and it was a fun little thing to examine. Hey, fun times. Y'all take care, stay warm. I'll catch you on New Year's Eve, folks. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. Don't get any on you. And if you do, rub it in real good. Peace. Peace.
Tribulation, torture, murder, genocide, mechanical